Hello, Mark. All right. First of all, I'm really glad to see you trying to randomize the situation. So, like hands-on X type of a thing. You're still reloading stuff, drawing stuff, but changing the starting position. Those are all good. Uh, let's take a look at a couple areas when you're changing things. There are some difference happening where it should be, like for example, meg insertion happening at the same place is not quite happening. So let's some talk. Let's do some talk. Okay, for the draw stuff, a lot of times it looks pretty good, pretty darn good. However, there's one thing happening, pretty minor thing, but it actually is very important to fix this because this can help in general transition a lot better too. So the mechanics of the draw itself to present to your eye line is pretty okay, but when the gun comes up to the eye line, if you look very carefully on the muzzle, let me show you. So it goes up to your eye line, it comes back down right before trigger pull. So this is actually a common thing. A lot of people, like, I don't know if you watched the Joel's Modern Samurai class thing, but yeah, this is pretty much happening almost every single run. So going all the way up and coming back down. This is two reasons. So first of all, of course, it is possible that the gun actually passes the eye line and you have to bring the whole entire gun come back down. And another case is kind of like what's happening over here. If you look at the muzzle and the rear, the level, the line, right, the top line, it looks like the whole gun is kind of coming down, but more of the muzzle's dipping downward, meaning the muzzle might have pointed high and then you bring the muzzle back down like that. This is like the samurai class kind of talks about, hey, your red dot should be dropping from 12 o'clock. No, I don't buy that. Your red dot should be staying in the window the whole time. So in this kind of case, you might have had not a perfect index during the transition to your eye line and then end up pressing down the dot, pressing down the muzzle, which makes the dot comes back down from the window. This is not good for this reason. If in target transition, let's say side to side, you look to a specific spot and you should be zoom in as hard as possible that spot, and then in your peripheral vision as you're zooming it in, you should be seeing the dot coming in from your peripheral vision. And then when predictable shooting is happening or confirmation 2 kind of thing happening, you should know when it's going to be stopping, when it's going to be touching that spot, and then you fire the shot. So visually having the dot in your peripheral vision is extremely important. However, what does happen if this is now a draw situation and the window is now coming up to your eye line and suddenly the red dot drops at the full presentation? This means you have zero visual of the red dot in the peripheral vision. Does that make sense? So you need to have the dot actually coming from low to high during the draw process so you can shoot predictably on the shot. So oftentimes if you shoot confirmation 1, you may not actually see any dot in the window in the draw process. But if the index is proper during the transition and the dot is actually inside the center of the optic window, then what happens is even if you shoot confirmation 1, given that the gun properly stopped on your eye line, you broke the shot immediately at the same time, then you should still see the dot jumping off inside the optic window. Does that make sense? So it's extremely critical to have the red dot inside the window and coming into that spot you're looking at, and you see that dot in your peripheral to be able to shoot predictively a lot more accurately. All right, that's one fix we need. Let's take a look at the reload. So in the reload process, so this is moving reload, yes? And let me draw this. So body center, usually that cross zone, that spot is usually where the reload is happening, because that's usually the most comfortable place. Like naturally when you clap or applaud somebody, that's where you clap usually, or put a thread in the needle kind of thing. But this particular moving to the left in your direction, the gun is kind of veered off to this side, not completely centered. This could be a video angle, but I think that's what's happening over here. And also, just basically what it is, the position of the reload over here is not happening exactly same as a stationary one. When you're doing a stationary, you didn't have much of a problem at all. So this is the place, exactly front of the chest. Whoops, front of the chest. This is a spot for you, reloading spot or work space, I often say. So that's your workspace, and the workspace has to happen consistently, no matter you're stepping out or picking off the table. So picking off the table, now it's happening a lot lower than your work zone, as you can see. So what I would recommend you to try for this particular table off the start, what I often do is, yes, I stand just like you, but at the buzzer, I bend my leg to get myself lower. And then as I'm picking it up, already, since my hip line, instead of being really high, hip line is, let's say, somewhere around level with the table, then my chest area is lower, so you can bring to that work zone very easily. So basically, you reloading in a different space of your body instead of that work zone all the time. If you create like many different place reloads, of course, you want to be able to do that. In some cases, like when you're running when you're running uprange, now workspace maybe not a case. You can keep the gun because of the 180 rule. So you still want to be able to do it, but as much as possible, you want to use that workspace because that's where you practice the most. Because oftentimes we shoot static stationary reloads, so the possibility of success rate, so consistency, is a lot higher when you are using that chest area. So just getting down a little bit can help you get closer to the chest area about the time the mag well and the magazine is facing together. So that's one thing that you can consider for sure. And let me show you the moving reload just for a second. One thing that you really want to pay attention to is the position of the magazine. So as you see, you're trying to grab the mag body or mag base pad, and you can kind of see you're releasing it and then grabbing again, because I think initially it was not the perfect spot. So one thing that I would recommend you is, you know, like the make ready and then starting position, like right at this moment, I would recommend you kind of touch the beaver tail and the base pad with the palms and index finger on it to just make sure you know that position, so you can subconsciously go to that spot after the buzzer. So just reminding yourself at the last moment of make ready, and then when you relax your hands at sight or whatever, touching X mark, yeah, touch these two important things. Of course, you don't have to touch the magazine in a draw only, like loaded gun, but when you have to load the gun, try touching both index parts of the gun and the magazine to make sure you know where it is. All right, I'll talk to you next time.